I want to welcome you to another episode of Beyond the Surface Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Wanda J. Evans-Brewer. I want to take a look at some of the conversation that has bubbled to the surface around locks, natural hair, traditional black beauty, standing in one's own naturalness. Now, this discussion is prompted by the comments that Giuliana Rancic directed as Zendaya. So Zendaya, I know her as a Disney star, but I also know her as a phenomenal dancer and competitor on Dancing with the Stars. To date, she has been nothing but a lovely young lady managing to blossom and bloom in spite of the camera, because we know with a lot of kid stars that just doing that can be extremely difficult. I think back to the set of Different Strokes, and every single child actor there, and of course two of them are deceased, struggled. Like, that transition that young people make from being kid actors to adults is often very filled with a lot of shark. It's like they're swimming through shark-infested water, and it's really up for grabs whether or not they'll make it or not. But so far, Zendaya Coleman has done pretty well. So innocently at the Oscars, she kind of was experimenting with her look, which is traditional for young people, and she decided to wear what I would call fake locks or faux locks, but she had dreadlock extensions. Now, listen, Zendaya is beautiful in a paper bag. She's a lovely young lady, okay? It wouldn't have mattered what she wear. In fact, she previous year she worn a short pixie cut. So this year she tried to be a little bit more daring. Dress was phenomenal, earrings, makeup, the whole bit. And so the only difference was the locks. And so the locks brings that ethnicity forward. Well, the comments that she received from the fashion police, particularly from the host Giuliana Rancic, was that she looked like she smelled like patchouli oil and weed. And so, of course, Zendaya had, made a response to it, which she normally doesn't do that kind of thing. But what was interesting is Black Twitter went crazy, and other adult women, people from all sorts have really stood up for Zendaya. Okay, not that she needed any help, because her comment, her actual response to Rancic is something that if it didn't humble her, I don't know what would. And I want you to hear it. She said, "There's a fine line between what's funny and disrespectful. Someone said something about my hair at the Oscars that left me in awe. Not because I was relishing in rave outfit reviews, but because I was hit with ignorant slurs and pure disrespect. To say that I'm an 18-year-old woman with locks must smell of patchouli oil or weed is not only a large stereotype, but outrageously offensive. I don't usually feel the need to respond to negative things, but certain remarks cannot go unchecked. I'll have you know my father, brother, best friend, best childhood friend, and little cousins all have locks. Do you want to know what Ava DuVernay, the director of Oscar-nominated film Selma, Ludici, 9-time Grammy-nominated singer, songwriter, and actress, Terry McMillan, author, Vincent Brown, professor of African and African American Studies at Howard University, Heather Andrea Williams, historian, who also possesses a JD from Harvard University and an MA and a PhD from Yale University, as well as many other men, women, and children of all races have in common locks. None of them smell of marijuana. There is already harsh criticism of African American hair in society without the help of ignorant people who choose to judge others based on the curl of their hair. My wearing my locks on an Oscar red carpet was to showcase them in a positive light, to remind people of color that our hair is good enough. To me, locks are a symbol of strength and beauty, almost like a lion's mane. I suggest some people should listen to India Ari's I Am Not My Hair and contemplate a little more before opening your mouth so quickly to judge. Zendaya Coleman." Hey, just classy, straightforward, historically and culturally accurate. She needed no help, but nonetheless, it's beautiful to know that other people step forward to say that the comments directed at her were wrong and inappropriate. Now, in defense of Juliana Rassett, she did deliver an apology, and having listened to the apology, I can honestly say that for the most part it seemed very sincere and very heartfelt. But what's interesting about her is that up until this point, she has never been associated with, thought of as anyone that would ever even say anything that backward. I know she's been a part of the fashion police. Joan Rivers was probably one of the most kind of just offensive, abrasive comics. She's been around a long time. You know, when I think of mean comics, I think of Joan Rivers, I think of Don Rickles. There's a couple of them that fall in that genre, Kathy Griffith, where they just say very cutting, mean, hurtful things, and it's all under the guise of comedy. So, and I agree with Zendaya. There is a fine line. Now, my fine line pretty much lands on children. Okay, there are people who put themselves out there. They know what come with the territory. The Lady Gagas of the world, the Madonnas of the world. You know, where they really just keep pushing the envelope. Rihanna's, where, you know, you never know what they're going to do. You never know what they're going to wear. You know, yes, there's a question about whether or not they may have experimented with Patchouli, or they might have messed with some marijuana. But then there are people who are just kind of finding their way in this world. And Zendaya is one of them. I mean, you know, this is just a Disney kid who just happens to be 18 years old. I mean, just turned 18. And to put her under that amount of pressure and attack, where she just innocently showed up at the Oscars, I think was not only a low blow, but I see why folks took it as racist. First of all, if you're discussing my fashion, I don't know how you can smell anything from fashion. So the mere fact that the whole critique left out anything about her clothes, her dress, her jewelry, the makeup, you know, you just immediately go to focusing on the one thing that makes her ethnic, and that look has to have a scent attached to it, which of course would be marijuana, because everybody knows everybody black smokes marijuana, supposedly. I mean, these are all part of like these ugly stereotypes. Now, while we're discussing this, Juliana seems not to understand completely, you know, because what part of her apology was, it would never have been racist. So she doesn't completely understand what makes it racist. So for her to really get clarity on it, let's talk about a couple of the things that are just stereotypically negative and racist comments directed toward blacks who wear their hair in an ethnic manner. One of them is that our hair and our bodies are dirty. We're often being seen as unclean. We often are seen as not washing ourselves, not washing our hair, as it not being somehow or another, we just magically let it grow and never touch water. And that is just very backward and ignorant. We wash our hair like everybody else washes their hair. I'm 14 years into locking. My locks are about 32, 33 inches long. It is the best time in my life because it is my hair. I'm not a part of any sort of scam or scandal to steal Indian women's hair. I'm not buying it. I'm not getting it sold in. I'm not using lace front wigs. This is my hair. And I do have to do what everybody else has to do with hair, which is wash it. All hair has to be washed. All hair has to be maintained. But like anything else, people's hygiene practices are unique to people. Every person gets to choose how clean or unclean they want to be. Another backward idea, another stereotype about people with locks is that everybody is using herbs. Everybody loves incense, or that they smoke weed, or that they're part of a hippie culture. For a lot of people, they just want their hair to be natural. Like, it has nothing to do with connecting to an herbalist or being a part of a traditional culture. It's just the black hair coils, and it can naturally coil into a lock, and you don't have to put chemicals in it. You don't have to press it. And you don't have to do restrictive styles like tight braids. You can just let your hair take on its natural shape that it would take. We need to stop that backward thinking that everyone is somehow trying to be a miniature voodoo doctor. That's not what's happening when people are locking their hair. Locks are often associated with militancy. Okay, this person has locks. Okay, they must be a part of MOVE. They must be a part of the Black Panther Party. They must be. What about they just like the hairstyle? It has nothing to do with being militant. For many American blacks, there's an assumption that, oh, then that person must be a part of Rastafarian culture. No, the Rastafarian do wear locks as part of their religious practices, but it has nothing to do with why an American black would want to wear locks other than they're convenient, they're neat, they're deemed as beautiful. That's it, that's all. You get other stereotypes that come along with wearing locks, like you're Jamaican. You don't have to be Jamaican to wear locks. Of course, a lot of Jamaicans wear locks, and they have a history of men and women wearing locks. And of course, the greatest Jamaican that we know that wore locks was Bob Marley. But many, in fact, I actually don't like Bob Marley's style of locks. He had about 8 locks in his head, and they were super duper long. But again, it is an ethnic style that is natural to the hair. That it's easy to maintain. You don't have to add chemicals, but you definitely don't. It does not imply for 1 minute that you come from Jamaica. Again, everybody that wears locks are not weed heads. They don't associate with weed heads. They don't want to be weed heads. And that part really gets us, is that why does the fact how you wear your hair associate with what you would consume as a drug? And so, it gives you no place to go with just trying to be yourself. There's a presumption that you can do anything with a lock. The majority of locks have limited styles. It's not, you can't do the same thing that you could do with straight hair or loose curly hair. But you can look pretty graceful in locks. I mean, you can, and as you saw with Zendaya, she just kind of had an upsweep and allowed the rest of them to flow and be natural. There's a presumption, there's a stereotype because they're hanging, you can touch them. It's annoying when people walk up and grab your hair. It doesn't matter what kind of hair, the shape of the hair, grabbing people's hair, touching people's hair, being curious about people's hair. Just because they're locks and they're hanging, that doesn't mean they want you touching them. It's still hair, it's still annoying. Locks are associated with criminal activity. As of late, half of the people that show up on the first 48 for some reason have locks. Well, the reason is that it is crossed over from Jamaica to be an American cultural style. So many boys who get into criminal activity happen to have locks, but just as many don't have locks are involved in criminal activity. There's an assumption that everybody accepts the term dreadlocks. I don't call my hair dreadlocks because I don't like the term dread, which, for me it has a negative association. I call mine locks. Some people call them just dreads. It depends how you see it. And so when people walk up and they're talking to you about your hair, you can't assume that even the terms that you're using are not necessarily negative. And then I guess, the biggest, one of the last stereotypes that, I've heard people sort of reflect on with people that wear locks is that, that they can't be professional, that it's impossible for locks to be professional, that they never give a person a formal or a polished look. And that's a pretty unfair low blow hit. So it's like you're still trying to make people fit into a European standard for beauty. So your braids are not professional, your locks are not professional, your kinky twists are not professional. So the only way you can look professional, even though black hair coils and curls and kinks, is if you take it into an unnatural state. So that for what? To make who feel better? For what purpose is that done? So for Juliana Rassett, I hope this helps her and others like her understand, because she really was just heartbrokenly confused. Like, what is it? What happened that people are this upset? How could that comment be deemed racist? Well, it's racist because it is. It's racist because you're attacking a group in an area and in a place that is unfair because you're asking them not to be themselves. You're asking her to go against her naturalness. And then because she's chosen to be herself, that somehow comes with a penalty. And then the penalty is she's up for grabs. You get to talk about her in a way that has nothing to do with being a part of a fashion team. It just simply was an insult. So, again, Zendaya didn't need any help. I mean, she came out with just a very, probably one of the most maturest, intelligent responses anyone can give. I don't even know if I would have been as mature about it, only because it just seems so unfair and it seems so low. And I've always thought of Giuliana Rancic as a little bit more polished than that. I watched her when she was on Apprentice. I watched her as a competitor on Apprentice. I was excited about her marriage to Bill Rancic. I was excited about when she finally was able to have children, and even when they became sort of like a power couple, loving on each other. It's been nice to see her around. She does have, and this is my opinion, for someone who has a very peculiar look. She just is kind of really skinny, kind of a straight up and down figure, a big head with big eyes, like really thinned out lips. And, when she made the comment about Zendaya, I said it's easy for someone to say about her, yeah, and you look like you stick your two fingers down your mouth and practice bulimia, because that's how thin she is. It's like when people start playing that attack, you really need to go back to that man in the mirror and look at yourself. I felt like she picked on a kid. I felt like she picked on someone that didn't deserve it. This girl has never put herself out there to be a part of cutting anybody down. I've never even heard Zendaya say anything negative about anyone. And so I know that the fashion police isn't necessarily based off that, that everybody is up for grabs and it's kind of lighthearted. But it's been things that even when the team has said certain things about people where it has gone borderline, just a little bit too far. And we're in that time where everybody is pressing so hard to be funny and say that one thing that is just so over the top that everybody is just, they're talking about it every day. And I just think, Juliana got herself caught up in something that's not even her. Perceptions I've had of her is that she's a pretty nice woman. She's a pretty nice lady. The fact that she had the wherewithal to immediately, extend an apology speaks to her. But I was uncomfortable with her, like, not really getting why it would be deemed, racist, and saying, that would never be my intent. No, the road to hell was paved with good intentions. And Zendaya said it best. We need to think before we open up our mouth. She didn't need to attack that girl on that level. If she said, well, I don't know that I would have worn locks with that dress. Or I think that, I don't have a problem necessarily with locks, but I don't like it necessarily for the Oscars. I don't like it with that combo. Or her makeup and the hair and the dress are not in sync with each other. But to just simply just go in and bring up this specific oil. And let me tell you something. I don't even know what patchouli. I've never used patchouli oil in my life. First of all, I ain't never smoked no weed, but I most certainly haven't used patchouli oil. So it sounds like who's been working with that is her. Either that or she had a boyfriend or somebody to work with it, because everybody I know, we use black Jamaican castor oil. We use coconut oil. We use, we stay away from mineral oil. That's definitely not good for locks. I had no idea when she mentioned the oil, I had no idea what the oil was. I said, wow, she accusing this little girl of using some oil and smelling like marijuana. And it just blew me. And so I understand why Zendaya said she was kind of at all. Like, she's never even conducted herself that way. She's never even one time conducted herself that way. We got to lay off of these kids. We have to lay off of the kids, particularly the innocent players who are not involved in adult popular culture, and many of its undercutting, ugly, evil, racist ways. You've been listening to Beyond the Surface Radio, and I'm your host, Dr. Wanda J. Evans-Brewer. And until we meet again, be safe in God's grace.